Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? You know, it's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, we got the odds from a Bet Online for the Saints coaching search. And several weeks back, Joe Brady was the odds-on favorite to be the Saints head coach. And then on Monday of this week, we got updated odds, and Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator, had overtaken Brady as the betting favorite. And that may still be how this all plays out. The Saints are still going to go through the interview process, and all that is very structured by the NFL based on when interviews can take place and when teams are still playing, et cetera. And then there's the Mike McCarthy angle, which he's now very much in the mix. And for whatever it's worth, Bet Online has Mike McCarthy with the 7th best odds to be the Saints coach, although it feels like that might be a little low, especially when you consider something like this. So there's a report today from the New York Post that is suggesting that the Jets may actually have the inside track in pursuing Aaron Glenn to be their new head coach. This report is from Brian Costello of the New York Post, who in this week says that Aaron Glenn has told people near him that the Jets would be his first choice if he's offered the job. Now, there's a couple of things in there that need to happen. First of all, the Jets have to want Aaron Glenn to be their first choice. It's not to say that is the case. Of course, they fired Robert Saleh, who was a defensive coordinator that they promoted to head coach, got him from the Niners to be their head coach, and maybe they look to go a different direction. Maybe it's an offensive-minded coach. What happens with Aaron Rodgers? A lot still to be determined, but the Post is reporting that Aaron Glenn's preference would be the Jets. So that, from the Saints' perspective, would be disappointing because internally, if the New Orleans Saints favor Aaron Glenn, which it kind of sounds like and seemed, kind of feels like that's the case and probably has been the case for some time. Mickey Loomis has talked about hiring someone that he knows or is familiar with. We know Aaron Glenn was in New Orleans as the secondaries coach before going with Dan Campbell to be the DC there in Detroit. Well, on Wednesday, Aaron Glenn met with reporters up in Detroit here in advance of the divisional round game. Of course, they're hosting Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. And he was asked about why his time in Detroit has prepared him now to be a head coach.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go back to 21 and going into this year because we started, as we all know, 3-13-1. And then the following year, we go 1-6. But the thing that I could remember that sticks to me is our head coach, our coordinators, our coaches, we never wavered from the things that we believed in. I think that's a strong statement when you stand in front of a group of men, say, this is how you have to win. And we believe that you win this way. And those guys believed it too. And then once our owner had an interview and she backed everybody, all the coaches, that we have a formula to win and it's this close. And from then on, I think we went 8-2 into now. So here's what it taught me. We know as a staff how to build a winner. And now we know how, as a staff, how to sustain winning. So we want to continue to do that, as long as we're all here. So to answer your question, building it from the beginning and sustaining it from here on out.
One more also from Aaron Glenn. He was talked about having gone through the interview process before, and if he feels like he's more prepared now for this round of interviews, considering he's done this in past cycles.
I think you learn a number of things from each year that you go through them, and you try to improve on those each year. But I think the one thing that I get out of all these interviews is, man, I'm going to be myself. And either you like it or you don't. If you don't, all good. I keep telling you that I have a great job here. And if you like it, if it's an opportunity I think that's best for me and my family, then we'll take a look at it. But I had a really good time, over the bye week, looking at those. But now, man, we're all locked in, ready to go and play this game against Washington.
I think one of the things that as the Saints are looking to hire their coach, all you can ever do is just make your pitch and put the best foot forward. It's interesting how all this kind of dovetails. I'm reminded of when the Saints hired Sean Payton, and Sean wrote about this in his book. But, coincidentally, Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy were interviewing for the Green Bay job in 2006. And Payton was the OC with the Cowboys, and McCarthy was with the 49ers. He'd spent 4 years with the Saints from 2000 to 2004, spent 1 year with the Niners, and then went to then took the Green Bay job. Well, Sean Payton wanted the Packers job badly and was upset when he didn't get it, and ultimately ended up taking the New Orleans job. And we all know what happened there. They would both go on to win Super Bowls, et cetera. But we look at it so many times through the organization's perspective, but it also matters for the candidates. So like Aaron Glenn may prefer the Jets, and it makes sense. The Jets are historically not a great organization, as we well understand, but you're in New York. If you covet that media market, the Jets do have a younger and more talented roster than the Saints, and the Jets have $17 million in cap space. They're 24th in the league for 2025 with $17 million in cap space. That's not a lot. It's in the bottom third of the league, but the Saints are dead last. And you're going to have to do the cap gymnastics again just to get within cap compliance. And the Saints are looking at a multi-year rebuild. So maybe, and the reason I wanted you to hear what Aaron Glenn said about the time in Detroit when they had a really rough first season and they started, what do you say, it was 2-8, I believe, or maybe they started 1-6 and finished 8-2 the rest of the way. And he went through that in Detroit. It might be something similar in New Orleans. Is Aaron Rodgers back in New York? Again, don't know. But that'll be the really interesting thing from the Saints' perspective is who do they identify as their top guy and can they get him? Because if it is Aaron Glenn and Glenn wants the Jets job and the Jets offer it to Glenn, then you're moving down the list. And Mike McCarthy may well be the guy. Now, McCarthy, as we've learned, has interest from both the Cubs, the Bears, the other Chicago team. The Bulls are interested in Mike McCarthy, by the way. He'll interview with the Blackhawks and the Bulls. Anyway, McCarthy is going to interview with the Bears. I got it right, the Bears. The Bears and then the Saints. I confused myself. And if McCarthy lands in New Orleans, to be quite honest, my feeling initially whenever we started talking about this was not very good. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit of a prisoner of the moment and maybe a victim a bit here of groupthink, of like the internet groupthink where everybody's kind of dogpiled on McCarthy. And it's odd because when he was in Dallas, I kind of defended Mike McCarthy. I mean, over the 3 years prior to this one, when Dak and everybody got hurt, I mean, it's kind of amazing. They still won 7 games with the backup quarterback. But that is the Cooper Rush experience, right, Muse? I mean, Cooper Rush, our guy, Cooper Rush, went and led the Cowboys to a 7-win season. You know who's not surprised?
If you want to call it that.
This guy right here is not surprised.
Sure you aren't. Sure you aren't.
Coop did work.
Jeez.
But there is a lot. So Ross Jackson wrote a piece at LouisianaSports.net. It's free if you want to go. Again, everything always free at LouisianaSports.net. And Ross did a really deep dive into why Mike McCarthy is the new frontrunner for the Saints job. And there, of course, is the tie to the organization. I mean, Mickey Loomis has been here since 2000 and has been the GM since 2002. And that's when McCarthy was the OC from 2004. So there's a knowledge there. But McCarthy spent 13 years with the Packers, won a Super Bowl, went to Dallas, has a .608 career winning percentage. That's top 40 all time. He's 11-11 in the postseason, which means he's made the playoffs 11 times. As we mentioned, he's won a Super Bowl. 18 seasons as a head coach, 11 double-digit win seasons. And he's built up 2 organizations. There in Green Bay, He took over Green Bay when they were a 4-win team. And we know what happened there. And then while, they went 12-5 in 3 consecutive seasons in Dallas, the playoff shortcomings are what everybody remembers. And maybe the same thing in Green Bay there with Aaron Rodgers and just getting over the hump and winning the one Super Bowl. But it does sound a lot like what Sean Payton and Drew Brees did in New Orleans. I guess I look at it and I say, if you're looking for someone that maybe it's the same, test that I'm applying here that I would have applied to Bill Belichick. Belichick at 72 years old or 73. If you go somewhere, you're not hiring someone for a decade, but what if you had him for 3 years and he made you better and got you to the playoffs, and then whoever was next was inheriting a better situation? Maybe that's a situation with McCarthy similarly. And maybe I'm just trying to convince myself why this isn't a terrible idea, because I'm kind of starting to resolve myself to the fact that this might actually happen, because Glenn, I think, will have other options. And it sounds like he might pick somewhere other than New Orleans. And if that's the case, is Mike McCarthy the front runner? And if he is, why might this make sense? Well, strong background developing quarterbacks. Certainly has been a play caller. He's hired play callers on his staff as well. And he's won a lot at his 2 stops as a head coach. And if nothing else, maybe can sort of pull New Orleans out of this tailspin they're in and get it back to a stable footing before whoever might be next comes in, whenever that may be. So Aaron Glenn, sounds like he's got other options in New Orleans. Mike McCarthy might be emerging as the guy. If you're interested in reading more, I'd highly recommend you go check it out there at the LouisianaSports.net. Good piece there by Ross. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.